Hello, and a very warm welcome to all of the participants who are joining us from different parts of the world. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and that depends on the time zone. Uh, on behalf of CANI, I would like to thank all of the participants who have taken out time to be part of CANI Climate Action Week. We are really happy to have like-minded people here. This is going to be a brilliant session regarding the first steps for offices, where we have two experts who will be sharing how their experience has been when they thought to start with sustainability, and especially sustainability of internationalization in their institutes. We are just about to begin the session. This session will be recorded and will be uploaded on CANI's YouTube channel as well. So just to share a bit about the history behind CANI. Yes, so CANI was founded in late 2019, and the first ever event was in 2020. We've had leadership conversations before, and the previous Climate Action Week was in November. This is the first time that CANI is arranging and organizing Climate Action Week in April. We're super excited for that. Just a bit about the structure. CANI is a volunteer-run organization. We have a global board. We have regional chapters in Europe, Oceania, and Americas. A brilliant set of working groups that involve greening conferences, climate justice, communications, the CANI Accord Accelerator, and Content Library, just to name a few. The vision is for a reimagined international education sector that reaches net zero emissions by 2030. So CANI is by international educators and for international educators. And the mission is to mobilize the full power of international education community to address climate emergency and transform how we educate, collaborate, and advocate for the future generation of students. CANI is also a proud winner of a couple of awards as well. Climate Action Week basically is an opportunity for participants to join international educators and practitioners around the world to take part in thematic sessions. And we have two live podcast events as well. One has already taken place and the other one is scheduled for a later time slot. Some hot topics are being discussed. You will also have the opportunity to connect with and learn from fellow professionals during the interactive chapter meetings and networking sessions too. And before handing over to the presenters, I would like to thank the sponsor for CANI Climate Action Week, Alethea Global Cooperative. Alethea is a worker cooperative providing consulting services to decarbonize international education by focusing on equity-centered climate action. Some of the services Alethea provides include international operations assessment, professional development, training, policy writing, and putting the power of communication behind the messaging for climate action. Alethea Global is a proud signatory of the CANI Accord as well, and the proud supporter of Climate Action Week. So now I would like to introduce both of our presenters. The session is where to start with sustainability of internationalization in your institution. We are lucky to have Monica with us joining from Spain, and Adinda, who is joining us from the Netherlands. Monica is associated with SLU Madrid and Syracuse University Madrid, and Adinda is linked with In Holland University of Applied Sciences. So over to Monica. Once Monica shares her experience and her journey, we will then have 5 minutes for a quick Q&A session with her, and then Adinda will resume. So over to you, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everybody that has joined us this evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. Good afternoon. A little bit about me. I'm Monica. I am a professor and instructor of earth sciences in St. Louis University Madrid campus and also in Syracuse University Madrid. But I've worked for 20 years study abroad programs in Spain, in Apune. Many of you may have heard of it. And well, on September, I took a leave of absence to try to finish my doctorate. I think, Adinda, you are also, right, trying to do this? And it's like mission impossible, but I'll try. Anyway, so this morning we had a talk, and Jane Andrews from the University of Sydney participated. And so if you have the opportunity, please watch the morning session. It's going to be on YouTube, I think. All the sessions are going to be available there. But after listening to her, I've changed the title of my talk because I thought we were almost there, but we're not even close. So everything that she's been doing and University of Sydney, what they're doing is incredible. I got a lot of ideas from her participation, from her intervention. So anyway, if you have the opportunity, please watch it because it's very, very inspiring and useful. So anyway, I've been teaching earth science in Madrid and the study abroad programs here, and since 15, maybe 17 years ago. And I've talked about climate change since a long, long time ago. But really, the focus of study abroad has always been, learning about the culture and the language, and not so much about earth sciences. So I was kind of like by myself, teaching these science courses to US students here in Madrid. And I incorporated things about environmental sustainability, about climate change. I remember talking about climate change since 2005, I think. But really nothing, I wasn't really taking, it wasn't important, the course that I was teaching or the courses that I was teaching. So I think really after the pandemic, there has become more interest in sustainability especially from students and from the study abroad programs in Pune. There starts to be an interest in this, especially because students are wanting to find opportunities, for incorporating sustainability studies or sustainability practices in their program. So this is something that I've incorporated today. And a Princeton Review survey report, 74% of applicants to universities state that the institution's environmental commitment would affect their final decision. And so in many North American universities and colleges, they're addressing sustainability from multiple angles. This is something that we're trying to make the people in administration in my university in SLU Madrid, try to make them see that it's not only because, we have the moral responsibility to be more sustainable, being that we're our activity impacts, the environment, but also it could be also useful as attracting students to the campuses. But anyways, Anna, can you pass to the next one? So this was my first meeting in 2021. I saw that in SLU Madrid, there was an environmental club. And so I started to move it, and we started to organize activities. The first activity that we organized, only 3 students showed up. It was kind of depressing. And I think one of the students that are in the picture, Christy, is here so thank you, Christy, for joining. So anyway, this is how we started. Really, there wasn't much interest on any sustainability, anything in SLU Madrid campus, apart from the recycling bins that there were or something like that. But anyway, so little by little, especially because of the impulse of the students, so I really have to thank them, because really they've been catalysts for what's going on in SLU Madrid campus. Little by little, we've started to promote and to organize activities that have to do with sustainability, always with a focus or with the goal to convince administration that we have to focus on sustainability issues. One of the things that we're trying to convince the administration, and by the way, we have a meeting next week with the new leadership, so it's a good thing that happened today, is talking about the students' interests in sustainable development goals. This is a survey that the UNESCO did. Oh, and by the way, there's also sustainability surveys done by Karen McBride, who I've seen that she's here. So maybe, Karen, you want to put your survey in the chat. But anyway, so what did the survey say? That 70% of the students would like to see sustainable development incorporated and promoted through all the courses. This is something that we want to do also in SLU Madrid. Have sustainability or the sustainable development goals permeate throughout the different courses that are taught. 81% said that they wanted sustainable development they would like to learn more about. 25 said that sustainable development hadn't been covered at all by their courses. And 25% said that they had never heard of the Sustainable Development Goals. When I, oh, okay, all right, Karen. When I started to prepare this presentation, I made a survey amongst my students. This semester, I teach 120 students. And I gave them a very simple survey. I sent them the circle of the Sustainable Development Goals without any text. And I asked them, what is this? And only 3 people or 3 of the students actually said that they were the Sustainable Development Goals. Most of them said that it was like something for chemistry. Some of them said that it was the LGBTQ colors, and others said that they had no idea. So there's I think there needs to be a lot of education on the Sustainable Development Goals. Another thing that's also that can be used as a convincing tool, no, to try to convince your administrators to start focusing on these issues is that the number of green jobs has grown over 8% in the last 5 years, but only 6% of people. Well, in the past 5 years, there's been an increase of 6% of people that say that they have skills related to sustainability. In the US, for example, renewable energy and environmental sectors grew, or jobs in the renewable energy and environmental sectors grew by 237%. And the number of companies with chief sustainability officers in the executive positions also tripled from 9% to 28% in the past 5 years. So there is an interest, and there's going to be more and more demand on green jobs. So students anywhere in the universities, study abroad or international or whatever, have to have an idea of what the Sustainable Development Goals are and what sustainability is. And these are some of the fastest growing jobs globally. Sustainability manager, have ecologists there, solar consultant. Okay, so these are also examples of how, and this is data that we've shown to our administration to make them aware that it's not only important to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals because it's like an ethical issue, but also because students are going to want more and more of this training. And there's rankings on the universities that have more, that are more compromised towards the consecution of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is just more things that why a university should incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals in the curriculum, etc. There's an alliance of nature positive universities also. We talk about this in many of the CANI meetings, so it's moving towards that. And so what are some of the obstacles I encountered in these past 10, 15 years? First of all, sustainability was not a priority and has not been a priority. Study abroad programs now in Spain are slowly incorporating things in activities that have to do with sustainability, but really it's not a priority for them. There's very few science professors in the study abroad, at least here in Spain. And there's a perception that earth science classes are minor studies, no, when you go to study abroad. In the past, there's been low student engagement. Although I can say that since the pandemic, it's incredible, and I'm really excited and really proud of this, all the students that have so much interest, not only in sustainability issues, but also for example, in human rights. And then another big problem that I found, at least in my university, is that there's a disconnection between departments. So people are doing things, but we haven't really shared what each of the departments. Also, there's a question of time, no? So after the pandemic, this is when the environmental club kicked off. This is one of the activities that we did, and I was so happy. One of the things that I have done, it's kind of cheating, but I don't really care as long as they do them, is that I've incorporated a certain percentage of my classes. So I teach oceanography, water resources, earth science, and 3% of their grade is obtained when they participate in either a talk or a volunteer activity or some type of action, no? So anyway, that's kind of cheating, but it has increased the amount of people that join these activities. Next, Anna. And for sure, what has really inspired me to know that this is important is CANI. So with a little bit of help from my friends, well, and CANI and the students, such as Christy, who's here, I think this is taking off, and we have more and more interest in sustainability and applying the SDGs in campus. Next, Anna. So, inspired by Climate Action Week last year, we organized this Climate Action Week in SLU Madrid. The Environmental Club organized this, and there was a lot of work. I know, Christy, but it was worth it because it got the ball rolling. We did, next slide, please. We did several talks, and the most important thing for me was we incorporated professors from other disciplines, not only earth science. So we had a talk on net zero with professors from the business department, marketing professors. We had a club day where we talked about connecting nature or the issues of one of the environmental issues and other clubs that are on campus, for example, art club, how art plays a role in protecting the environment or not. And we had the participation of other professors. We had a day where we went to plant trees, and we did it with other study abroad students and with other study abroad programs. And then there's been several interdepartmental talks on sustainability, human rights, and climate change. So things are moving, and what we need to do now is try to convince the administration, which is what we're having a harder time. But we are. Last semester, one of the students for their project, they did an audit of the campus to see how we're doing in sustainability issues. Well, so these are some of the things that we also organized connection with nature. Oh, I'm putting these pictures because these are some of the things that the students did, and this is something that Jane talked much better than me. But anyway, so I put the pictures because Jane isn't here. So we did a connection with nature, a walk in the park, and this also promotes well-being. There's some studies, from the CDC. It's pretty alarming the mental health issues that students have now. So being in nature now also helps them with well-being. We have an orchard that's managed by students. I was going to put all the SDGs that relate to this, but I didn't have time because I put this this afternoon. So, but anyway, we can talk about hunger because they donate everything that they get. And these are students that just started this, and I'm so proud of them. Oh, that's me there. That's a terrible picture. Anyway, we donate the produce. They donated to a kitchen, social kitchen, no? We talk about water and water resources, which is related to SDG 6. And we planted trees with 4 study abroad programs last semester and 3 study abroad programs this semester. So we're really proud also on that. And we started a sustainability observatory in SLU Madrid where 3 professors from the business department and me started to, we've decided that we're going to move sustainability and SDGs throughout the campus. So these are the goals that we have to organize activities, to bring awareness, and to incorporate the SDGs transversely throughout the operations and teaching on campus. This was also inspired by following the lead of the Environmental Club. And the future projects are to help identify the SDGs in the curriculum of professors and to sign the CANI Accord, to organize talks about the topic, evaluate the campus. All right, and and using the foreign education abroad guidelines and other evaluation guidelines that we have found. And today we talked about COP28. We had a debate on if COP28, what are the implications of celebrating COP28 in Dubai? And we had a professor of political science who's half French, half Arab, talk to the students about COP28 being celebrated in Dubai, and there was a very And Baras, who's a professor of political science, is very excited to also start connecting all the disciplines, no, and connecting them also to the SDGs. Some tips. Start small and grow as you make allies. And I've learned that if they're in the business department, so much better because they're pretty important. And catalyze the movement. And one thing that I haven't done because I was like embarrassed, or maybe I thought it wasn't that important. Who wants to know about, I don't know, water in Spain? Well, talk about the SDGs. Talk about climate change because it's really important, more important now than ever. And yes, it's important, and maybe we can have people know what the colored circle is. And then the best recommendation is to join CANI and participate all you can, because it gives you a lot of resources, it gives you a lot of ideas, you have like-minded colleagues, and also it serves as therapy, for that eco-anxiety that you may feel sometimes, or that solastalgia, that's a new term that I learned also. So anyway, thank you, and I'm giving the word to Adinda. And one thing. If we incorporate green travel, that would be like, but anyway, small steps in my case. So thank you. Adinda, back to you.
Are there any questions that anyone wants to ask Monica?
Yeah, hi, I'll ask a question. Hi, Monica. So this question's my name's Karen McBride. This question's for Monica, but also other attendees. So I think students show a high level of interest. We know that sometimes they still might not prioritize it with all the other things that they're doing. What has been your or everyone's experience trying to motivate educators who seem to have an interest in being more sustainable, but maybe don't participate in opportunities to do just that? Because we see a range of responses in various things that we do, but I'd be interested to know, Monica, your experience and anybody else who's here as well. Thanks.
I think in my case and in the Spanish case, I think maybe they're aware of the SDGs, but I don't think they know about the SDGs enough. And I don't say it as a criticism, and I don't say it as something that's bad. I just think that study abroad in general has always had the priorities of cultural language, but at the same time, the SDGs also have to do with culture. And so I know there's people that are interested, and I think that when you talk about it, if you have the chance to talk about it, they become aware of them, of this. But for me, it's that there's a lack of knowledge, I think.
Yeah, I went to a conference last fall and presented to a bunch of education abroad directors at liberal arts colleges in the northern part of the United States, and very few knew what the SDGs were. And, it was a little bit of a wake-up call, but there is much more than the SDGs. I think it's such a great resource and where people can naturally start. But, so even a lot of professors or people in international education aren't as aware of those. So I have seen that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a teaching conference in 2 weeks. And the person who was organizing it, I said, well, I want to talk about incorporating SDGs in the programming of the whoever's interested. And he answered back, what are the SDGs? So
yeah.
Anyway, that's my,
yeah.
And then I had another question from Angelo.
Yeah, thank you, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome, Karen, and we'll connect for sure. What are the moments where we face difficulty in that word? Do you recycle activities or plan anew each semester? Well, basically, all the activities that we've organized took off last semester, really. And I think it's because we have really committed students. And this is very inspiring, because that first activity that we organized a few years ago, 3 years ago, no, right at sea, it was like in 2020, it was kind of depressing. It's also depressing. Sometimes it's depressing when I do field trips, and I think it's important to know the country that you're studying. And one of the most important things about the country is the environment, because it's, at least in Spain, and I think in all the Mediterranean basin, culture and nature are totally linked. And so sometimes the students have to miss some of their classes. And I've gotten emails from professors saying, do you really have to go to a water crisis right now? Is it just like an excursion that you're going to do? And so explaining that first, experiential learning is very important. Second, they're not only learning about aquatic habitats, but they're also learning about the use of those aquatic habitats and how even the culture and the history of Spain is totally linked to these wetlands. These are kind of the challenges, no, that I've had. But I think yes, and I think it's the students that are like pushing the movement. I don't know, Christy, if you want to comment something on the chat. You don't have to put on your camera nor talk. But really, I've seen a big difference with the students in the past 2 years. So I don't know if that answered the question. It's a survey that the UNESCO did, but I can, in the presentation, I didn't have time to put the link, so I'll put it on the presentation that will be shared with everybody.
Any other questions? Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, so my name is Adine van Galen and I'm working in Holland University of Applied Sciences. I'm the coordinator of the team for research policy and also a strategic advisor on internationalization of higher education. And in addition to working in Holland, I'm also a PhD candidate at Ghent University in Belgium. And I'm focusing my work on strategy development for internationalization of higher education. And I'm particularly interested in dilemmas in strategy development. And one of those dilemmas is definitely the carbon footprint of internationalization. So when I joined in Holland, one of the first things I focused on was, is sustainability an issue? Actually, it was one of the reasons that I wanted to join in Holland, because sustainability is one of the key themes, both in education and in research. But I also wanted to know if sustainability was integrated in internationalization. And it was in some part, because my university is really stimulating internationalization at home activities. So that's already a start. But in traveling, there are still some steps to take. Can I have the next slide, please? Because internationalization is usually more or less equivalent to traveling. And when you look at the carbon footprint of traveling, it's obvious that I'm sorry, this is another slide deck than I thought I would get, so I'm a bit confused by the slide. But anyway, so the carbon footprint of flying obviously is a lot larger than of traveling by train. And so when my colleagues in the HR department started to develop a new policy on traveling abroad, I asked them if I could join them to see if we could make it not only easier for staff members, but also decreasing the carbon footprint while renewing the policy. And so what we did was actually the board of directors asked us to develop this new travel policy, and we based it on our new strategic plan, which was published in September last year, and in which we really focus on two key areas, and one area is a sustainable living environment. And we also, as an institution, signed the SDG Charter. So we really looked into these topics and how have we phrased them, and what does this mean if we translate this into something very practical as a travel policy. And so we started to discuss this with colleagues from different perspectives. So we had HR colleagues there. I was representing the internationalization team, the policy team, but there were also people from finance and from communication. So we had a very diverse team, and that also showed in the discussions that we had, because the HR team initially had a very technical approach to sustainable traveling, whereas I had a more ideological approach, I suppose. And this led to quite some discussions on whether it was really necessary to go this length in trying to reduce the carbon footprint. And I was really pleased to see that actually we did make a lot of progress in our discussions. And this led to one of my colleagues, more or less at the end of the process, saying that she felt that she had become herself an ambassador of green traveling, and she hadn't expected that at all. So that was really nice to experience. And the same kind of thing happened to our board member, who said, well, actually, looking back now on the last half year, I've agreed on a number of travels, and I wouldn't do that in the future anymore. So I've really become more conscious, and that's actually what we want to achieve. We want to achieve more conscious decisions among all of our colleagues. Can I have the next slide, please? So, and we know that this will also bring up dilemmas, because when we say that we want to travel less, for instance, because we want to cut that carbon footprint, does it also mean that internationalization becomes less inclusive? Obviously, that is not something that we aim for. So we hope to also look into options of increasing inclusion while decreasing the carbon footprint. Also, reducing the carbon footprint can also mean that you decide to travel shorter distances. And what does that mean for the connections that you make in the world, and what does that mean for the knowledge base that you have as an institution? Green travel also often means slow travel. Traveling by train takes longer than by plane in general, depending on the distance and other things. So does that cut down from the time you have for the meeting, or from the time you have with your family, for instance? That was really one of the issues my colleagues raised. And then train travel is often more expensive than flying, and that was also for the organization itself a dilemma, because how do you spend public money? You want to spend it as effectively as possible, but then again, sustainability is also a public issue, so it might be well spent. Can I have the next slide? So actually, our policy is made up of a few questions that we ask our colleagues to consider when they want to travel. And the first question is this travel essential? And I think the first reaction, or the prime reaction of most people is, yes, of course it is essential. I know when I have to travel. Well, we try to persuade them to rethink and to reconsider. But in the end, it is obviously a decision that's being made by a colleague and his manager, and not by the committee that developed this policy. But when you do decide to travel, then sustainability is a priority, even over costs. And that's a very important decision for our board to make, because previously the choice of modes of travel and the choice for locations, hotels, etc., was always based on costs. So for the lowest cost possible, which is also actually the case in many of the financial schemes, like the grants and well, from the European Commission, for instance. So it's often about the costs. And my organization has now decided it's not about costs anymore. Sustainability is the priority. So we said that we will travel by train if this is possible within 8 hours, because that's a working day, regular working day, so that should be feasible for anyone to travel for 8 hours. We do make an exception for people who may be physically unable to travel by train, for instance. And people who want to travel by train for longer distances are very welcome to do so. They will receive the funds to do so, and then will also receive the time to do so. Time is an issue because it's always very easy if this board says, oh, you will get work time for travel time, and then there's still a workload that needs to be done, or people have to teach, for instance. So it's not as easy as it seems. People can travel first class on the train so that they can easily work. And well, as I said, travel time is work time, and they have to book through a travel agent so that we can also see what this policy means to reducing the carbon footprint. Can I have the next slide, please? So the process, the HR department was in the lead, and this was sort of special because previously they were not involved at all in sustainability issues. So this was a real new area to them. We do have a green team within our organization, but not a green office. Our green team is actually a group of colleagues who are personally involved in sustainability, but they do not have a formal role or even an assignment. So that's a complication. And so I joined this team of policy developers, also partly from the green team, but also partly from the internationalization policy team. And so we had technical policy and communication items in the policy development process. The communication part was also a very important part because the policy starts with a question to the colleagues who are intending to travel. And we want to encourage them to take this question seriously. So communication is a really big part. We know that it's not easy always to decide not to travel or to decide to travel green. And so we really want to persuade them, encourage them, share stories amongst them, and support them in doing this. This is also an official process because we had to go through several official phases. And first of all, we had to make sure there was sufficient support within the organization. So we asked the international officers, who are the colleagues who are most involved in booking travels, but also in traveling themselves. So we asked them to comment on our draft policy. We also had a few discussions with our board members to see how far they wanted to take this. And in the end, we proposed, well, we sent a proposal to the medezeggenschap, as we call it. It's an advisory committee from staff members, and to the academic directors, who also needed to be on board. Can I have the next slide, please? So, and in the end, it was actually accepted, and the board also accepted this proposal. So now it's being implemented, and this implementation will take quite some time probably, because it's also about changing behavior. So we are going to monitor this and see how difficult it is for us to change our behavior. And if any additional measures are needed, I will come back to that later, because additional measures will be needed. We already know this. But we also found a few obstacles during the process that need to be addressed. And one of them is that our travel agent, and our travel agent is actually not the only one. There are a number of travel agents that have the same problem. They are not really capable yet of offering a large diversity in train travels. So they do offer the regular big cities train travels, but not so much to the smaller cities or to the really long distance travels. So that's a challenge, and that's something that needs a lot of talking to the travel agent, but also cooperation, I think, between different higher education institutions who are provided by the same travel agent. Then there are the financial schemes, as I mentioned before. For instance, the Erasmus program doesn't supply sufficient funds to travel green. So there is, for instance, a top-up, etc., but it's not sufficient for most of the train travel. And also a lot of the projects within the European Union programs require still dissemination in a physical place where people meet. So that requires a lot of traveling from the participants. And it's still difficult to travel green because it has to be at the lowest cost. And it's also quite difficult still to do it in a virtual way. So that's also a challenge. And another challenge is obviously the difference in costs between tickets for airplanes and for trains. And there's no level playing field. Well, this is due to decisions, intergovernmental decisions on how these are, how taxes are being levied, I think the word is, for train travel and air travel. Can I have the next slide, please? So what's next for us? As I've said, this policy is not enough to really reduce our carbon footprint to become almost carbon neutral, because we started only with flights within a certain distance, so an 8-hour train ride. But there are also a lot of intercontinental flights or flights in Europe which go beyond those 8 hours train ride. And those are often, especially the long distance flights, are the ones that have a large carbon footprint. Another area that we haven't touched upon yet is students. And there are more or less two groups. One is students who are traveling in a group organized by the university, and the other one is the group of students who travel individually. And the first one is probably also the first one that we are going to address, because we are involved in the traveling of these students, and we are often accompanying the students and booking, sometimes booking the trips. And the individual student mobility is really very much an individual choice, so it's more difficult to influence, but it also is a next step that we will take. And then another area is actually people who are visiting us as an institution from abroad for meetings, for events, whatever. And how can we stimulate them or ask them to travel as green as possible? How can we make sure our events are also accessible online, for instance, or are taking place in a very central location for everyone? So that's another issue that we will probably address in years to come. Can I have the next slide, please? So what can we all do? Well, as I said, it wasn't easy to do a little bit within my institution, because I think we've only set one very small step, and I know that many universities are taking these small steps as well. But what can we all do together is reflect on our travel needs, and we can, well, as international officers or international educators, we ourselves travel a lot. We contribute a lot to the CO2 problem, unfortunately. And so what we can do is really reflect on our own traveling. We can also create awareness among our colleagues, and we can find allies Who else is eager to change policies within the higher education institutions? And we can also support each other internationally, like we are doing here at CANI. And jointly also try to influence our system and make cultural and systemic change possible. Can I have the next slide? So thank you very much for your attention. And I just wanted to point out that we've also written a few articles on this topic that you might find interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adinda. And if any of the participants have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and we'll hand over the forum to you. Yes, Angelo, please go ahead.
Hi, Adinda. I was just curious to hear about how you are approaching those conversations with your next steps in mind. You know, we're in early stages here, even just in terms of measuring the footprint of our education abroad students. But the more I think about it, I've started to try and be holistic, and within my unit, you know, work collaboratively with my international students and scholars office colleagues right down the hall. So I'm just curious to hear from your perspective. I know you have sort of this starting point, which is really great, that everyone is kind of sharing the same vision, but how might you provide any like recommendations for those of us who have a little bit more ground to make up, so to speak?
Yeah, right. Well, it didn't really start out that way either with me. So I also really had to convince my colleagues about this. But yeah, I was lucky that there was actually already a change of policy plan. So I could really tap into that and try to use that momentum to make changes. So I suppose that's one tip, but you have to be lucky that something is already being changed that could be changed sustainably. And another thing is that it's kind of going in the same direction, but it's not about the topic, but about the people. So if you find people who are also willing to make the changes, find a group who would like to think with you how you can change internally the organization. That also helps, not just because it will create more effect and more, well, you have more brain power, but it's also because it helps you to stay focused and to keep faith that you will in the end be able to change things, because it really requires stamina to do so, and a lot of repetition of arguments and of persuasion and etc. So it helps to have some colleagues who are just as well believers in this cause as you are.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Monica and Adinda, for this brilliant session. Since this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded on CANI's YouTube channel, those of you who are watching the recording at whatever day or time, I hope that you enjoyed it as we did, and you got to learn and some important key takeaways from both the speakers and their experiences. Like, it offers hope as well. It teaches us that there will be challenges, but we need to be resilient. And if we stay motivated, there are solutions to the problem. As somebody who belongs to the global south and coming from a country, Pakistan, which was 1/3 underwater last year, I do feel that, yes, even if there are challenges, we still need to make effort and push the agenda of climate action forward, and gradually change will come. And I must mention this again, that these brilliant ladies were in the session in the morning as well, and they took out the time to add new facts and some new points for the evening session as well. So thank you once again. I would also like to thank our brilliant volunteers, Angelo and Anna, who were there to manage all of the execution and doing the background work so that the session went smooth. Thank you so much to the audience. I could see some wonderful engagement in the chat as well. I wish a very best to all of the people who are working on it, and whatever links have been shared in the chat, please feel free to access them, the surveys, and we would be really happy to have made, even if it's a small difference. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Adinda, and thank you, everyone. And please do check CANI's website for the upcoming sessions. This is day 3, and we will be coming up with some more sessions in the coming couple of days. So hope to see you in those sessions. There are still opportunities for you to join the Americas chapter networking meeting and the Europe chapter meeting for networking opportunities as well. And we have an amazing podcast lined up too. So see you all there. Thank you.